Today, we have the chance to discuss a certain question that in its original form was submitted by one of you, but I have discussed it with 5-6 people, both in and outside of the organization, and have found 2 questions in it that seem to resonate with the full population of the people who live here, the people who know us from afar. And I think that this is a good explanation. The question offers us the chance to explain ourselves, to a certain extent, to the world. And the 2 questions are, how is this place different? And if we say it's different, is that, as it was put in the original question, just as egoic as the next person? Is it just as egoic as the next person to say that we're different? And how is it that we strive to be different? So, this is a big question, and it's good for us to look at it closely. It's one that I answered recently in a moment of vulnerability within my own life, which, looking back, I probably shouldn't have shared something that close to my heart with people. Many of you, I have only known you for a few weeks. So it may not have been best, because it's easy to misunderstand these things that matter to us so much, that have shaped us so deeply. So without going into that story now, even more in public, I'll just say that in general, what we're trying to do, the thing which is very unusual that we're striving to do, is use monastic training to face the issue of existential risk to life on earth, meaning collapse of modern civilization, catastrophic destruction of the human population, perhaps the complete end of the human population, and perhaps the complete end of life on the planet. These issues are hard to face, hard to respond to. And we are attempting to face them, first face them, and then respond to them by using monastic training. Beyond that, we're attempting to infuse the monastic training with the urgency, with the compassion associated with this crisis of existential risk. So we're bringing together monastic training with an awareness of, attempt to respond to existential risk. That, to my knowledge, is quite rare. I don't know of any other organization in the history of the world who has ever done it. I hope that there are many, and I don't know about them. I don't want to be unique in this way. But beyond that, we should, while it's important that we do the thing that we've set out to do, explicitly, what I just said, we've set out to do that. And that's somewhat different from other organizations. I would want to be as little different as possible. The difference should be clear, and then we don't want to invent anything else. We have a big task. The task of dealing with existential risk is so big that there's no reason for us to reinvent anything else. And so we want this monastic structure to be as close to others as possible. We want to learn as much from others, invent as little as we can, do as little differently as possible, primarily because of the fact that especially for those of us who are in a position where we have to try making new things, we get very humbled by it. Because most of what you try fails. The vast majority of new things don't work. And so you try this and it doesn't work, and then you try that and it doesn't work. And gradually you gain more and more appreciation for the wisdom of the ancient structures. And this is from me, and I have never needed to be convinced. I'm someone who is, from being a teenager, appreciated the wisdom of these ancient traditions. And yet, which is, I think, quite different from most of you and most of the people who will listen to this talk, there isn't the assumption that these systems are far wiser than anything I know or could ever imagine. There's a sense of, well, I think I'll judge these systems and see what I think. Putting ourselves in a position of authority. So even if we eventually realize, oh my gosh, I know nothing, I'm simply honored to be able to receive the benefits of this system. Even so, when we then make attempts at improving it, we are further humbled. So we want to invent, to create as little as we can. And it isn't only with the monastic systems. The questions actually, especially as I talk to more people, the original question and also talking with other people, it isn't just a question of how are we different from other monasteries or monastic systems, spiritual communities. It's also how are we different from an ordinary company, for example, or an ordinary nonprofit. And again, the answer is we want to be as little different as possible. We want to be as similar as we can. We want to make as few changes as possible because there are reasons that things are set up the way they are, which we may not know. A number of you have asked why, as I said, it seems like we have a lot of capitalist stuff here. So first of all, relatively speaking, we don't, but we have some, and I'm proud of that. I'm not against capitalism any more than I'm against doctors or what else have I been accused of being against? Therapists. Yes. See? So, empiricism, yes. So I have the sense that there is a tendency to try to identify those other people or that other thing that is the problem. And then the teachings here are understood in that way. But I'm not actually against capitalism. I appreciate capitalism. It's quite a brilliant system in many ways. It does many things very well. And there are certain components of capitalism which should be dismantled and replaced with other better aspects which we should create, and many of which have been created already. But that's different from just being against something. So when we look at what we're doing, we should, and we look at other monasteries and we look at other sorts of organizations, that should give us a sense of what we're after. We want to make use of the power of certain systems, the non-profit world, the capitalist economy. We want to make use of that to whatever extent we can. in which it's good. We want to find the wisdom in that, find the goodness in it, and harness that. We also want to do it from a monastic state of mind. And what is a monastic state of mind? What is it to be in a monastery? We talk about monastic training to do with existential risk. So, what does it mean to be in monastic training? And the answer is something that we chant every morning. It means that when we see a problem, we try to solve it by purifying our own minds. That's what it is, to be in a monastery. You see a problem in the world, and you ask, how can I solve it? And the answer is, purify my own mind. Sachitta. My own mind. Sa means one's own. Chitta is mind. My own mind is what I will purify, what I will cultivate. That's the starting point. And there are many monasteries where that's it. And I support that. I think that's great. In this place, we attempt to go beyond that. It's very hard to go beyond that. Extremely hard. And I think most of the confusion around these questions stems from not understanding how hard these tasks actually are. I was talking to someone today about this question, trying to explain to her how hard this is. And she said, yeah, but the more you say it, the more it just sounds sexy. I said, oh, that's not my intent at all. I'm trying to convince you that it's ugly, that it's a mess, that it won't go well. It's an actual challenge. And we see that when we come here. Those of us who have been here for a while see it in the new people who come. It feels, one comes, it's uncomfortable here, and the question is first, how can I change you so that I feel better? What is it about you that I need to change? Are you really trustworthy? If not, how can I make you into someone who I can trust? But the basis of entering this training is seeing whatever happens, I'm going to resolve it by purifying my own mind. That's it. This is a very different approach. And in this way, monasteries are different from most organizations. Most nonprofits, for example, don't see things this way. I've worked for several. That isn't how they look at things in general. Which again, you may hear me say that, and you may think, oh, Soryu hates nonprofits. But I support that, actually. I believe that they're right in not doing that. They've chosen a different path. If you think I'm saying that they're bad, then now you know something about your own mind. Because I didn't say that, but you did. If you said that, I'm saying. You said it. So, if you didn't say it, then you didn't say it. So we begin by approaching everything with that attitude. It's very difficult to do just that. It takes months or years to learn how to do just that some of the time. Then we would like to go beyond that. This is hard. So that we integrate that, we grow that to the point of doing nonprofit work in which we change the world. So again, we're not against that nonprofit or corporate system, but we want to arrive there with a different mind. Thereby being able to use it to different ends. So, how are we actually doing this? What are the things that we're doing that achieve this? Well, one thing is we're creating leaders. And each of you is being trained to be a leader. And it's up to you how much training you want to do, how deep you want to go. I leave that to you, and I think you may not understand the degree to which I empower you. It's not up to me, the training you do, for how long, to what end. I'm not interested in running your life. I'm not interested in managing your vow. That's not my job. My job is to be sure that you can do those things. It's your life, it's your vow. You should live it, you should manage it. If you ask me, if you think I'm managing it, then you are without a rudder. You're going to sail into the shore or out into the sea. It's not going to go well because I am not steering that ship. Do you want to train for a long time? Great. Do you want to train for a shorter time? Great. I believe in all of that. I believe in all of it. Spend a short time, then go out and do something. Spend a long time, then you'll do something different. Or at least differently. And we offer something that supports all of that. Beyond that, we're creating centers at which we influence people. And we're influencing a lot of people. These people, but also hundreds of people in the local community, hundreds more through our other connections. And there is an influence. The people who come and go are going out into the world and having influence. Come and go in a day, in a week, in a month. In 3 months, they come and go and then have a different life, offer a different thing to the world. So that's an influence. We've done many projects, of course. I'm not going to enumerate them now, impacting tens of thousands of people. But the main thing that I want to point out now is that we are creating leaders who can create a culture. And in fact, we are a part of a culture that is trying, and to a large extent succeeding, at devising a story that will run the world differently. It's difficult to make that story, and a lot of the time we're confused about what really runs the world. These stories run the world. And they are created by people who see the world in a certain way, sitting around together for a while and then telling people about it. Believe it or not, that's really how it goes. People see things differently, talk with each other about it, and then tell the world. And if it's a better story, it can take hold and change the course of history. So that is the thing that we look at most closely. The leaders who create a culture that creates a story that changes the direction of the world. We are working on that, and that's happening every day. This question is just one more part of that process. The discussions you have, the interactions we have with our network, all of that is part of learning what this story is. Beyond that, we have already created a network of communities, and those communities interact with each other in a way that's, how shall we say, loose, a little bit different, but also connected. And they have their own tensions and collaborations. And that creates change in the world. Beyond that, we have made and we continue to create a different kind of economy, both in terms of how we're interacting with the people who support us. We're engaging in a different way, not the same kind of economy as ordinary capitalism. Every time we interact in this other economic system. We changed the world a little bit. And we're developing a new kind of currency, which we've already used here and there, and we keep on experimenting. With all of these things, it's essential that we get it right. And that is one part of what happens when you have the humility to deeply question your own mind. You realize how easy it is to rush and get things wrong. So it's important to be careful, to not rush, and to be right about it. Then we come to the biggest question of all. Though we're different, we're doing these things, trying to deal with this problem in this way. But how do we know that that isn't just as egoic as the next person, just as egotistical as anyone else? How do we know that we are different in this way? And I have only one answer, and that is each of us has to make use of our own integrity. That's it. And if you want a different answer, you're at the wrong organization. Because here we look at our own minds first. And we question, and we question, and we question, and we question, and we doubt, and we're torn apart, and we become vulnerable and are attacked and try to remain open and close down and suffer and figure out another way and try and try and try. And that is how we express, that's how we live this integrity. It's the only answer. And I've trained in a lot of systems, and early on I wanted those systems to answer this question on my behalf. And why can't you have the integrity so that I don't have to? And I felt betrayed, actually, when I discovered that no one would have my integrity for me. Literally, I felt angry. I felt hurt. I felt betrayed, yes. And it took me years to realize I made that problem. I'm the one who made that problem. I have to hold my own integrity. And that's all we have. We have systems, we have techniques for you to use that will help you to grow your integrity. But not if you don't use them with integrity. It all comes back to that again and again. We do have systems. They work well. We can teach you breathing meditation. We can teach you noting. We can teach you compassion practices, and it will work. But only to clarify and augment the integrity which you use in order to apply those techniques. That's all they do. They bring that forth more. They encourage that. But they don't give it to you. They don't hold your integrity and you can go outside of yourself and get it. They will help you to see when you're not in integrity, help you to see when you are. But they can't create it for you, and so each of us has to take that responsibility. And that's why I say we have to be different. Basically, the question is reiterating what I'm trying to say. So thank you for clarifying this. What is it that makes us different? What is it that makes us not just as egotistical as anyone else? And that's what I'm asking too. I'm just saying it as a demand. I'm exhorting you by saying we have to be different. We have to have more integrity. We have to. That is our job. That's what we must do. We have that duty. We must do it. And then I yell that many times. And I'm saying the same thing as this question is stating, but in question form, in a softer way. Simply asking, well, what is it though? Why aren't we just as arrogant as anyone else? So it may seem as if there's a question that's different from my demand, but actually there are just two ways of stating the same thing. Is that each of us should be asking or demanding of ourselves, have I really dropped attachment to self? Have I really done that? Because we do make certain claims. We claim that the problems in the world all come from attachment to self. And we examine, and eventually we see that that is a true statement. And once you see it, you don't have to pretend that you're not clear. People, I think, appreciate it when you people like vulnerability. And it's important to be vulnerable, but you don't have to lie in order to be vulnerable. So once you're clear, you can just say, this is the truth. You don't even have to say that I think this is the truth. I believe this is the truth. In my experience, this is the truth. Because none of that is true. Once you've seen it, it is true. It's true whether I think it or not. It's still true. So I'm not going to confuse the topic. I'm going to be clear. And at that time, it's essential that you are willing to have a strong self. That's not the same thing as attachment to self. In fact, in all likelihood, you need a strong self in order to achieve dropping attachment to self. That's what the precepts are all about. That's what virtue is all about. Developing a healthy, strong person who's going to now be capable of entering samadhi. And how do we do that? We do it by doing good things so that we have confidence. The reason we can't enter samadhi is that we're not confident enough to do so. That's why. Now you know. We use the precepts, virtue, in order to gain in self-confidence so that we can enter samadhi. We use that samadhi to gain the confidence needed in order to let go. That's what happens. And the confidence and the non-attachment to self, in other words, humility, are exactly the same thing. There isn't a difference between confidence and humility. What's difficult about, to be blunt, your population is that you do not see that confidence and humility are the same thing. On the contrary, you think that humility and shame are the same thing. You think, I should not. We're afraid of leadership. We're afraid of strong self. We're afraid of decisive action. We're afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid of messing up. And we've also been trained to not trust leaders. For a lot of complicated reasons. Not all of which are good. So, a lot of what becomes important for you to do as you gain in this wisdom is that you become willing to take a stand, to speak with confidence, to speak your truth, to not just speak what you've been told to speak, to not just question the way you've been told to question, but to speak your truth, which no one else has ever said, which you didn't learn from anyone. To do that, and beyond that, to do that even in the position of leader, when everyone will be questioning you and attacking you. Just know that that's coming for you. I'm training you for that. Training you to be ready for when you're a leader. And then everyone comes in with the assumption that you're evil. And they say it, and it's a valid subject of conversation. So I was in a meeting the other day in which it was just brought up as, something we should really investigate is everything wrong with Soryu. And she was like, yeah, we should. That's true. That's okay. Let's add that to the list of things that we should be doing around here. And, what are his psychological problems and his emotional problems and his social problems, and what should we do about that? And so you should know that you should be ready for this. I don't think it's good, actually. It's actually dehumanizing. And if you dehumanize the teacher or the leader, then you're giving permission to dehumanize everyone. You're saying we should have the right to manipulate your personality in order to fit what we think needs to happen, which is a very dangerous thing to do. But it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. It's still going to happen. Once you're a leader, that's what it looks like. That's going to take a lot of time and energy. And I'm trying to train you, because even while people are attacking you, attacking you in a good way, they're trying to help. They're doing their best. You're not mad at them or something. They're doing their job. Like I tell you all, speak up, speak up, speak up. So then you speak up. Right? Great, do it. I'm not saying it's bad, but people will be questioning you and even attacking you. And while that's happening, you have to keep on doing your job. You have to keep on taking care of them. You have to keep on making difficult decisions. And most significantly, you have to keep on being a stable person who's carrying this container in which everybody gets to say what they have to say and go through their process. Beyond that, while all that's happening, you have to distinguish, look at all the stuff they're saying. What is the 90% that's just their stuff? What is the 9% that's about me somewhat? And what's the 1% that's the most important thing for me to learn right now? Because that's basically what a leader or a teacher is. A teacher is a person who is very good at learning from others. And so in our system, in theory anyway, I should be teaching you because I am better at learning from you than you are at learning from me. If you get good at learning from me, then you would become the teacher. That's the way we look at it. The teacher is the person who should be best at learning from others. As they say, not to make you too uncomfortable, but I'm training you. The wise learn more from fools than fools learn from the wise. Wisdom is the ability to see the truth in everything. So no matter what someone brings to you, it's your job as a teacher to see the truth in it. And if you can't, then you know that's because of my own mind. So you find it. It doesn't mean that the whole thing is truth or something like that. It's that you know how to discern. You can find the wisdom, distinguish it from the delusion, and then make use of it to grow. So I'm trying to offer you the ability to do all this. And one of the most important parts of that is that you can step forward and be a leader. And in order to do that, you have got to be willing to both mess up and, when you mess up, improve. That's hard. And if you're not willing to mess up, then you can't be a leader. It's not allowed. It's the price of admission. So I mess up. So I'm going to do that. But that doesn't mean that something wrong is happening. That's just part of it. We're going to try stuff. Most of it won't work. Great. But just keep going. And whatever you do, don't hold back your truth so that you don't mistakenly say something that isn't your truth. You've got to be willing to do it badly sometimes in order to do it well ever. And that means that if we're going to really go for it and then learn, that we have to continually bring it back to my own mind. My own mind as the way that I will serve the world. That I direct my attention at my own mind. How to do that. How to do that. How to do that. Gradually, it stops being that if we do that enough, then we stop making the mistake of having something in our mind that makes us comfortable, feel good, and then trying to turn the world into that. That's the normal way that we try to do good in the world. People have been trying to do this for a long time. We have an idea in our mind. When we think the idea, we feel good. And so we have the sense that if I could just make the whole world like that, then not only would I always feel good, but the world would be a better place. The way I know that the world is a better place is that I feel good in it. That's how you destroy life on earth. I just told you how to do that. You try to change the whole world into your mind. That's how you kill it. You have something in your mind, you like it, so you want to make the world be like that. If we begin instead by going into ourselves, purifying our own minds, it is not then that we have no ego, that we are a weak self, that we're not capable of leadership. On the contrary, people who do this training generally have really big personalities. Huge. Many of you have seen this. You become capable of walking into a room, and in walking into it, you're capable of changing the state of mind of everyone in it in 1 second. You become capable of that. You get a presence. That is not wrong in itself. And because we've purified our minds, these strong, courageous, and sometimes mistaken actions that we take don't come because we have an idea about how the world should be. We're going to make it be that way. It's simply that we hear the cries of the world, and we can't help but respond. And in fact, to not respond is to take action. To respond is not taking action. To prevent ourselves from responding is harder. It takes more effort than to allow ourselves to respond to the cries of the world. We are drawn forth. That is, it looks, I know, when we see leaders like this, it looks like that's ego, because they have a very strong personality and a lot of confidence. But actually, if it's done truly, and whether or not it's done truly is our own integrity, if it's done truly, then it's the most sublime kind of humility. You're willing to do what's needed, and that's all you do. And then you die. That's every bit of your energy is simply called forth. If it's not called forth, you don't bring it forth. But if it is called forth, then you bring it forth. Is that what's happening here for us? All I can do is ask you to look at the world situation, at what has happened when we have ideas of how the world should be based on an attachment to self, see that crisis, and use it to motivate yourself to deeply investigate your own mind. I strive to demonstrate that. But don't think that that means you should be ashamed of yourself. You shouldn't take action. That itself, that act, is an action of inaction. It's inappropriate inaction, which isn't what we're calling forth. Instead, we're attempting to call forth a group of people who can, in fear, write a story for this time. In the fear, knowing we might mess this up. We might mess it up a lot. In that state of mind, we come forth joyously, actually. Joyously celebrating this courage, this compassion. So all of this comes back to integrity, and if we are not as egotistical as others, as was put in the original question, the way, the thing that makes us different, the way to that difference is our own uncompromising integrity. When we strive for that integrity, we can find truth anywhere. When we really see how much need we have of greater integrity, we can find the truth anywhere. And that means that we're not against anything. And in fact, we don't see ourselves as different from, we don't see ourselves as separate from anything. So strangely, paradoxically, by striving to be different in this way, we discover that we are not different in any way. And with that, we discover how it is that trying to change the world and trying to purify our own minds are exactly the same thing.